Good morning again, everyone. I am Brian Rush, and I am with Jovi
Joe
Hill.
V. Hill, Joe the
Absolutely.
recruiter.
Yeah, Joe the recruiter. And this is another episode of the Connector Circle, where we dedicate ourselves to routinely sharpen iron and try to master the skill of connecting with others, right? We employ the practice of connecting. We use the book Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And today we're going to be talking about things that jumped out from chapter 7. Chapter 7 so far has been one of my favorite ones. Connectors do the difficult work of keeping it simple. Joe, what are your initial thoughts on this topic that we're going to be engaging in on this episode?
Oh my God, just the title itself, that part of it, keep it simple. Remember in the Army, give it a kiss, keep it simple. I mean, how often have we communicated to others and it just went over somebody's head because of our own fault, really? We just wanted to sound impressive and and there's a part in here which I know we'll get to. John says, get to the point. We have a tendency to become a little verbose, a little wordy and everything in terms of like, I just want to sound impressive, you know. But I know we're going to cover those things. But there's something in here where I'm not sure if you want me to mention or if you want to Sue Cardam's quote.
Yes, please do.
And she says, and it comes right out of John's book, and I love it that he gives credit where credit is due. And he quotes her and he says, if you use lengthy or stilted language to try to impress, you cannot connect. The audience is simply waiting for the torture to end. Waiting for the torture to end. Have you ever sat in one of those classes or meetings to where somebody's just rambling on, rambling on? Somebody please shut this guy up.
Yeah,
I
for
got his
sure.
point 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And personally, I'm gonna put this to me. I often struggle after I say something. I'll be like, I use 20 words when I should have used three,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yes.
the person that I'm trying to end the torture on is myself.
I love the way you put that, man. Yeah, and you simplify things for me, man, and I really appreciate that. But when you caught yourself doing that, how did you make that adjustment?
It's a work in progress. I'm still working on it. So now I'm seeing that I make a lot of more pauses now because I'm trying to work out what's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah. And those pregnant pauses, as you know, we call it that in Toastmasters, and I think they're effective. It helps not only the communicator gain his or her thoughts, but it also allows the audience or the person that's listening to us to have a moment to reflect and maybe even do a follow-up question, which are those are kind of important as well at times, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next in our outline, which I think is a great question. Why do you think educators often make simple things complex while great communicators do the opposite?
John points that out, and I love the way he points that out. He basically says the educators, like you said, take something that's complex or simple and they complicate it. They really want to sound impressive in their academic journey, their degree programs, or what have you, their certifications. And in a way, I kind of get it because they've spent a lot of money on education. Now they want to put it to use. However, they do it at the expense of those that are trying to understand what's being communicated to us. And being an educator myself, I mean, I taught at the graduate level for a university as an adjunct instructor part time. And when I read the syllabus and everything and the text that I was supposed to present, each week, I'm like, it was complicated to me. How was I supposed to communicate these principles and tasks and homework assignments to a class when I had trouble understanding it?
Mm.
And this was before Chat GPT, obviously, so I couldn't run anything through chat. I had to figure it out on my own. So finally, I figured out instead of teaching, why not facilitate and just ask a few questions, let the class run through with it, and then maybe I can provide clarification along the way.
Hmm.
That was kind of helpful to me. But educators, man, we just want to sound impressive at times and talk above our students. And I don't think that's fair, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think whenever we think we need to impress people, we talk more, we use more complicated language. But when we
Yes.
feel like we want to connect with people, we use simplified language. So for me,
Oh,
I always think, would a fifth grader or a third grader understand the concept that I'm trying to relay? If not,
yeah,
simplify it even more. So right off the bat, John Maxwell talks about a time that he was interviewed on a television talk show,
yeah,
and the talk show kind of threw a criticism at him. It said, quote, John, I've read several of your books and they are all so simple. His tone of voice, body language, and mannerisms made it clear to me that the audience that he did not mean this as a compliment. But John's response was, that's true. The principles in my books are simple to understand, but they're not always simple to apply. The audience applauded and he conceded what I said was right. So the television host basically thought simplicity was a problem, but John, being a master communicator, understood simplicity is the magic bullet
yeah.
with whatever concept you're trying to relay.
Yeah, I think that's great. The way he, I don't want to say he backfired the question. He fired back at the individual who asked the question, but he did. He provided that simplification for all of us. And but he's right on the other end of the spectrum, Brian, that the principles sometimes are not that easy to apply. I've read a lot of his books, and like in the 15 invaluable laws of communication, to where you want to grow and develop. The chapters are great, but once you get to the principle portion, like you're kind of like, man, I know I can do this, but there's that little bit of embarrassment or that, you're putting yourself out there because you're going to have to be somewhat transparent and vulnerable, to be better, to communicate effectively and to grow personally and professionally as well. So if you want to continue to grow in whatever aspect of your life, you're going to have to be a little transparent with a lot of issues
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing that stuck out, it says, but as leaders and communicators, our job is to bring clarity to a subject, not complexity. It doesn't take nearly as much skill to identify a problem as it does to find a good solution.
Mm,
Here's the great quote. The measure of a great teacher isn't what he or she knows, but it's what the students know. Making things simple is a skill and it's necessary if you want to connect with people when you communicate.
yeah, I mean, wholeheartedly agree. And students, when I was teaching, man, they can bring a lot of value to the
Oh yeah.
classroom, especially if they've been working in that field or industry for, several years, that, they've learned things that are not in the textbook.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily a workaround, but it's a solution, like you said, to the problem that needs to be addressed, and the problem can be fixed. So the students are engaged in a classroom environment. When they're really engaged, they collaborate and help each other out, which actually, to me, it enhances the textbook a little bit more through a simplified process. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, man. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that was, I love that. I love that quote in there that he puts in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So he talked about criteria for good material a little bit later on.
Hmm.
And this is the 4-H 4-H categories for a quote to be a good quote or an illustration. And I'll mention the first two H's and
Hmm.
you can mention the second two. The first one is humor, something that will make people laugh, or heart, something that will captivate people's emotions.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, I said, babe, I'm accidentally funny, but not funny when I would like to be on purpose. And I do think humor opens up the mind and it opens up the heart. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think humor, and you know what? I'm glad he put that one first. To be honest with you, I'm really glad he put that one first, and to highlight the next one where it's heart. The humor does have to come from the heart,
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and humor has to be. Even though sometimes when we watch sitcoms on television, the humor is scripted, obviously, but it has to be timed perfectly almost. Lucille Ball, for instance, she was ahead of her time when it came to stand up, or the sitcom that she was on, I Love Lucy. It ran for I don't know how many years, but it was perfect. Every scene, every communication between the actors, the impromptu type stuff, it was perfect. Although scripted, But I think during that time, she also brought a lot of hope from the heart. And we kind of talk, he talks about hope in the next one as well, where hope is something that will inspire people. And let's face it, we live in a time right now to where we really need a lot of hope. And as you know, as men of faith, you know, we can gauge into that. And that's like a whole nother topic. But at the same time, we have to have that glimmer of hope. And I believe that humor from the heart provides that in this time. And we kind of need that. We kind of need to make each other smile, make one another laugh. We kind of need that right now.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
something that should not be put on the back burner.
Yeah.
Uh, the help, also the last H, help, something that will assist people in a tangible way. And right now, sometimes folks just need help or they need the resources. And how can we communicate resources that are available out there to help people in times of need?
Yes.
How do we communicate that without being offensive or making a joke at somebody else's expense? Since we're kind of talking about humor a little bit,
Yeah.
how do we do that? Because let's face it, we're doing this every week to try to be impactful and add value to people. And that's what we want to do. You mentioned earlier, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens the countenance of his friend. And
Mhm.
therefore, we have to provide that hope, that faith as well. Faith without works is dead. And I believe we're providing that in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually um judge movies off of a movie trailer.
Yeah.
And I've been saying this for about 15 years. If you can't captivate me in your trailer, I know the movie's not going to be good. And it does follow kind of the 4-H process. If I watch a movie trailer,
Yeah.
it better either make me laugh, humor, it better make me feel something, heart. It better make me maybe hope something that inspires me, family, faith, business, thriving, overcoming, whatever. Or it better have something that can help me or help others. And so if it
Nice.
doesn't do that in the because the trailer is kind of like the preview, put your best foot forward.
Right.
That if it doesn't captivate me, I'm not gonna want to do that. Let's move across that. Communicators do have the challenge of communicating, but sometimes it's across cultures. And Joe, you travel the world on missions trips, so you know the hurdle of jumping over cross cultural communications. So he included some interesting failures of cross cultural communications that he observed. Did any of those stick out to you?
There were a few, and obviously, we have our own. But there's, he mentions a list of these things that he sees. Like, for instance, the big one that kind of it doesn't stick out, but they're really humorous. He talks about a dry cleaners in Bangkok, Thailand. Okay, drop your trousers here for best results. I mean, yeah. So John communicate when he communicates these things, he obviously with humor.
Mm-hmm.
But he's getting to a point. Be careful how you communicate certain things, which there's the simplicities there, but the humor and the heart is also there.
Yes,
Um,
I
the
have one.
hotel in Bucharest was one of my favorite as well.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Uh, I mean, check this out. The lift is being fixed for the next day. During that time, we regret that you will be unbearable. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
everybody's
awesome.
got to skip the elevator and get a little bit of exercise for the next day and walk up to their rooms in the hotel.
Right. I
Mm.
like the hotel in Athens. Visitors are expected to complain at the office between the hours of 9 and 11 a.m. daily.
Yeah.
I really like that, but it begs the question, or the lesson here to me is the challenge of the communicator. It's not only cross culturally in different countries. What is my audience's understanding of the language that I'm using?
Exactly.
Check
Um,
and see, like, so as a communicator, I should I should put my message up and then stand to the side of it and say, what do they what does that mean to them? For
right.
example, I was in a group, I was training a board last Monday, and we were talking about how disc affects different how disc impacts how people see the same situation differently.
Mm, I
And two
love
of
it.
the people in the room said, whenever someone responds to my text message with a thumbs up, that means like a middle finger. That means like screw
What?
you.
Wow.
Everyone else in the room was like, really? That's how you interpret that. Everyone else was like, that means Roger. Okay, I understand. I agree or whatever. But then
Yeah.
it was two people in the room that said no. To us, we interpret that thumbs up emoji as what you just said. Screw you, whatever. And that's
Hmm.
exactly what we've got to do. Okay, I said it. It makes sense to me. But now let me stand to the side of what I just said, and perhaps
Yeah.
even sit in the position of the audience and say, and ask them, do these words, this term, what does it mean to you?
Oh my gosh, I can provide another example for that. So I had a friend that was an expat. He lived in England for about 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and he asked his coworkers, "I want to take my wife out to eat tonight, and can you recommend a couple of restaurants?" And they said, "Sure." So they gave him a couple of recommendations. He goes to the restaurant, he and his wife, and the maitre d' says, "How many in your party?" And he says, "Well, two." Now you and I, okay, two people, right? And so the maitre d' just kind of looked at him throughout the entire night. He had lousy service. The food was late, it was cold, the waiter was rude, the maitre d', and they couldn't figure out why, Brian. So he goes to work the next day. His coworkers ask, "Hey, what'd you think? How was it? What was your experience like?" "Man, it was terrible. It sucked. I'll never go back there again." And he said they were all like, "Why?" He said, "All I did was the maitre d' asked me how many in your party, and I said, well, two." And they all jumped back. "You want like that?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Table for two." The guy asked, "Table for two." That's all I wanted, me and my wife. And they kind of like shook their heads. They were looking at each other. They were silent for a moment. Never do that in England. He said, "Why?" "Because that's like you Americans giving each other the middle finger over
Ah,
here." Oh my God.
right.
That, right? And I couldn't believe, I mean, that was like a lesson learned for me before I do something stupid,
Mm,
you know? So I kind of, I never forgot about that,
hmm.
and I've seen that in British sitcoms and in British movies to where they do that to each other. I'm like, oh, now I get it.
Ah,
Hindsight being 2020, thinking back on that story. So from a cross culture perspective, communicating, we have to be careful because one, we're in somebody else's home, we're in somebody else's home country, and we need to take heed to that. What their customs and courtesies are in those countries.
yeah.
And as an invited guest, we should take heed to a lot of
Mm.
these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And even within America,
Mhm.
different generations and different subcultures speak a different language.
Oh yeah.
Their slang is different. The technical
Mhm.
terms are different. There's certain mannerisms that mean different things. So if I go speak to an audience of high schoolers,
Yeah.
the language is totally different from what you and I use
Yeah.
as people who were born 20, 30, 40, 50, 50 years before they were.
Mhm.
And
You're
so
right.
I've got to do a translation of what do my terms today mean to them, if anything.
Hmm.
Then I got to
Yeah.
translate it. Now I got to totally rewrite it to where I talk their language, not
Exactly.
assuming that they can understand my language. And then
Mhm.
I had an instance with a football team where I was trained. It was about 100 players in the room, this university north of Kansas City, and I used a term. And I would growing up, it meant one thing, Joe. It meant something drastically different to these 20-something-year-olds. And it was hilariously embarrassing. It was
Oh
absolutely
man.
embarrassing. 100 football players in the room. Once they told me what it meant, I was like, oh my gosh. We all started laughing, right?
Yeah.
We all started laughing. So that point is very, very well taken. Speak the language of your audience
Mm.
simply, and not try to speak the language, your native language per se. And even though
Yes.
you both may speak English, the terms that you use and what they mean to them may be something totally different. Now we've gone from those quotes. Let's go to the 3S strategy.
Oh yeah.
You want to share what the 3S strategy is?
Sure. So John in his book, on page 54, he'll mention the three S's. Okay, and so I'm going to read the first the paragraph just above that, if you don't mind. It says, "Trust me, if you haven't traveled much internationally, I can tell you that it can be a challenge. After speaking in more than 50 different countries in hundreds of venues, I've developed the 3S strategy, and I believe you can take this anywhere, Brian.
Mhm.
The first one is keep it simple. The second one is say it slowly, and I love the third one, man. Have a smile. Have a smile. So in this chapter, he says keep everything simple, basically, in order for your audience to understand. If and you mentioned earlier that if you say it in 20 words, why when you can say it in three, which is perfect. And that instead of trying to fill this time gap, oh my gosh, man, I got 15 minutes left. What do I do? No, your audience wants the torture to end, just like he mentioned in the beginning of the chapter with that quote. And so, if we keep it simple and move slowly, like we're moving slowly through the crowd as we need to, I think we'll be okay. But not to mention, we got to have that smile. People want to be engaged with us. They don't want to be afraid of us. Like, man, I got a question I want to ask Brian, but man, he's really good at what he does, but I'm afraid I'm gonna come across stupid, man, if I ask him this question.
Mm.
But no, Brian's got a great personality. He's got a great smile. He's engaging. He'll shake your hand and put his other hand on your shoulder. And, he'll say, "Yeah, what is that you got for me?" So he has that smile. So therefore, I can approach Brian. Brian is very approachable. So now I can go and ask Brian a question about what he's talking about, and he
Mhm.
can simplify it just for me.
Mm. Right. That
So
makes sense.
yeah.
I just love it. Keep it simple. Say it slowly. Have a smile. I know he
Mhm.
says that this applies to whenever you're speaking to international audiences. I
Mhm.
think this applies at all times because
Yes.
you are a one man citizen of the country of you, and
Hmm.
everyone else you meet is the president of their own country. So
Yeah.
imagine, just assume that you are making international relations, and nothing you say it can be automatically understood by them. So do the work of understanding how they are going to receive this message.
It
In my
is.
marriage,
Yeah.
I actually had this conversation with my wife. I said, "Babe, I have conversations with you, and we're talking about the same issue, but we have totally different viewpoints and values around the same issue. I wonder if what I'm saying is not what you're hearing."
Mm.
And once we unpack that, I had then that made me do the work of how are you receiving this message? What does that
Right.
mean to you when I say X? And it was like, oh, okay, cool. Let's get to the next one. Talk to people, not above them. I love that.
Wow.
I'm gonna read a quick quote. A lot of people feel that way when a speaker or leader conveys complex ideas without making an effort to make them clear and simple. I know I've sometimes felt that way as a listener. When this occurs, it means the communicator doesn't understand that shooting above people's heads doesn't mean you have superior ammunition. It means you're a lousy shot. I love that. Talk to people and not above them.
Hmm.
To me, that is a show of humility, and that's a show of care. I don't want to talk above your head
Right.
to make you feel like I'm better than you, or to make me feel better about myself because I quote
Exactly.
unquote sounded smart in front of the crew. Instead, I want to communicate directly to you to show you that I respect you enough to bring you what you need in the manner that it will be palatable to you.
Right. And that's so important, because a lot of times I've sat in meetings to where there's an agenda and the agenda was sent out ahead of time so you can
Mm-hmm.
prepare for the meeting, right? You got your notes prepared, the things you want to discuss, the questions or the issues or the challenges that you may be facing. But the only one that's doing the speaking in the meeting when they get to you is the leader. Okay, well, this is what I have. Okay, oh, by the way, this is what you need to do next. This is how you're going to fix this. This is your deadline. Next person.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you have just put that in an email for me?
Right.
And although that may not be like necessarily speaking above, but at the same time, I love the humor in that at the end of the paragraph, at the end of the sentence, it means you're a lousy shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love how John always comes back around almost 360, have humor. and he threw the humor in there for
Yeah,
us as well at that
absolutely.
point.
Which is a great way to communicate, like we went through
Yeah.
earlier with the four H's. The second
Hmm.
principle, get to the point. The second principle is get to the point. I
Yeah.
have been revamping my communications model and my agendas for my meetings. One of the things that I like to do is lay out the agenda and lay out the expected goal.
Hmm.
What's in it for them? Even for meetings. What's in it for
Yeah.
you? The goal is to leave this meeting with us aligned on blah blah blah. The next three action steps on this. Okay, so now I know what's in it for me. Well, in our communication, same thing. Hey, bro, where are you going? Where are you going with this ride? So I can decide if I
Yeah.
want to stay on or tune out.
Have there been times to where you sat in that meeting and you've had to tune out to where it was just like, my God, enough is enough. Why did I attend this meeting other
Yeah,
than I had to?
yeah, because you know when somebody, when you get the vibe where somebody's just talking to like because they love talking
Hmm.
and they're just running on, and it's like, bro, we're 15 minutes in and you ain't got to the point yet.
Yeah,
Get to the point.
exactly. Oh
Yeah.
man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Here's a quote. All good communicators get to the point before their listeners start asking, what's the point? To do
Right.
that, one must start out already knowing what the point is.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's like Franklin Covey says, begin with the end in mind.
Yes.
I love it. That's one of his principles in the highly effective habits of the people of the book that he wrote. And he says, begin with the end in mind.
Hmm.
I mean, how simple is that? If we have an agenda that for a meeting and a task or a project that we got to complete, why not just start there? Why
Right.
not start with your end state and work your way back, do your backwards planning and move forward?
Okay. That makes perfect sense. What do I want them to know and what do I want them to do is two questions that he asks himself that he asks himself whenever he's preparing to communicate to an audience. Um, I really, really enjoy that. Now I'm gonna move on in the book where it says, quote on page 160. If you're communicating with others, whether you're speaking to a child, leading a meeting, or giving a speech to a large audience, your goal should be to get to the point as soon
Mhm.
as you have established connection with people and to make a great as great an impact on others as you can with as few words as possible. Great leaders and speakers do this consistently. Joe, I circled it. I underlined that. I everything that is the ultimate goal for me as a communicator who seeks to connect with people. What say you?
Ditto. Ditto. Yeah. I mean, I love it because I'm guilty of this myself. Like you mentioned earlier, like you gave the example, bro. We're into this meeting 15 minutes and you haven't gotten to the point yet.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, I was guilty of that, and now it's like, Joe, get to the point. And like you, when I prepare, I just try to get to the point.
Yeah.
Therefore, when I'm getting to the point, I think it also enhances the collaboration aspect a little bit better as well.
Yeah, for sure. So get to the point as soon as you have established a connection with people. And what we always say is connection before content.
Hmm.
Connection before content. The connection tills the ground, I believe, of their heart or their mind, which
Yes.
then opens the hatch to their ears.
Hmm.
But if you till that ground properly, then they're going to be open to the content. But if you try to
Yeah.
throw some content at them without tilling the ground of their heart or their mind, they're it's not open yet. So I like
Right.
what he said. Get to the point as soon as you have first established a connection with people. I love that.
Oh
Um,
man, that is good. That is good.
the next part it says say it over and over and over and over again. If you want to be if you want to be an effective communicator, you have to be willing to keep emphasizing the point. What do you think about that?
Repetition is big. I think is necessary because I don't care how good of a note taker you are, or you may have forgot to hit the record button on your device when you're in a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Repetition is very important. I mean, how many times have we walked out of a meeting or an event to where somebody repeated that key point, or maybe just twice, but it was
Mm-hmm.
so important you didn't take the moment to write it down or to record it, or if they had it on a slide, you didn't take a moment to take a picture of it. But repetition is key. If this meeting, if this agenda is so important and I'm leading this meeting, and this may get to the point to where it gets on somebody's nerves. You already said that. You already said that. Yes, I'm emphasizing it because it's important. And
Yes.
I don't want you to be the one to walk out of this meeting like, Joe, can you repeat that? Can you say what you said? Yeah, I will, but I may not be too happy when I say it the next time.
Yeah.
So repetition is key, and I may lose my sense of humor.
Yeah. And repetition
Yeah.
has been used. It's
Yeah.
like, as a teacher, repetition is undefeated.
Yes.
As a teacher, repetition is undefeated. Here's why we know effective repetition is undefeated. And here's the funny point. It's whether you have a willing audience or a reluctant audience. Joe, I'm going to run an experiment on you to test the effectiveness of repetition.
Okay.
Like a good neighbor,
State Farm is there.
State Farm did not ask your permission
Mhm.
to reserve that spot in your permanent memory.
Oh,
All they
yeah.
did was employ repetition in your
Mhm.
life. You
Right.
you hear it on the radio, you see it during TV commercials, you see it on the internet everywhere. They have
And you know
drilled
who Jake is.
Yeah, they have drilled that saying into your permanent memory.
Mhm.
Repetition is undefeated
Oh
as
my.
communicators. Be strong and courageous. How many times did God tell his people that? A million
Yeah.
times, because that was good. That was absolutely going to be needed for the
Hmm.
things, because of the things that he was going to drive them through. I'm going to read I'm going to read two quotes. One by the pastor of Willow Creek that he mentions, Bill Hybels. The
Hmm.
quote is, "Vision leaks." By that, he means that even if people do buy into a vision or a message, they can eventually lose their passion and enthusiasm for it. They can even lose sight of the vision altogether. Because this is true, leaders must continually repeat the values and the vision. I love it.
Ooh.
Um, what do you think of that?
I got to touch on this, and I love the way he says it. Okay, the leader has to communicate this quite often, basically, right? How often have we heard a church pastor say, "This is going to be this year's vision," and they communicate it once in January?
Right.
You don't hear it during any time during the first quarter, second, third, or fourth quarter. You may hear it at the end of the calendar year, like, oh, remember the vision we established and the goals we were going to do? Well, here's the things that we accomplished, and here's everything we didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I kind of remember the vision you laid out, but you only laid it out once, and you never wrote it down anywhere either, where people can see it and run with it, as the Bible tells us, right? In the back,
Right.
that if you're going to lay out a vision, you better repeat it more than once, and you better have your people read it more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way he puts this because I know John puts it in his other books as well, that the leadership has to start from the top, and that vision and mission statement has to be repeated down to the people. And again, not talking at them or above them, but just constantly repeated from the leadership. If the leadership doesn't buy into the vision, why should I? Repeat it to me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Speak it all the time.
yeah,
Like,
and don't be afraid to toss it out there in an email,
yeah.
once a month or twice a month.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. William Rastetter is how I'm thinking we pronounce that name on page 161. This is what we do with our team whenever we're partnering with organizations. We tell them repetitious training is very, very important. And if you want to get return on your investment, behavior change happens with repeated exposures. And so
Wow.
the quote by William H. Rastetter says, "The first time you say something, it's heard. The second time you say it, it's recognized. The third time you say it, it's learned."
Yes.
Love it. Because yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Mhm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
should put that on my business card.
Yeah, for sure. For
You
sure.
know?
So Joe, I'll share this with you. The Team Builders Academy, what we tell people is very much like this. I call
Mhm.
it the ERAM. I call it the ERAM theory of repetitious training.
Okay.
The first training is exposure. The second training is refresher.
Mm.
The third training is application, and the fourth training is mastery. I
Man, that
say
is cool.
ERAM because if you think about it,
Yeah.
I don't learn anything the first time I hear it. I'm not that smart, buddy. I need to be repeatedly told over and over. Say it, write it down. I need to see it. I need to see it demonstrated. Repetition gets it into my thick head, and
It
then I
does.
can start to master
You're preaching to the choir,
it.
man. I'm telling, and my wife has gotten on me about this over the past few years.
Okay.
You used to memorize things, you used to keep things, you'd write things down, 3x5 card, blah, 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 paper planner. You don't do that anymore. And she's right. And we just had this conversation
Mm,
this week
mm,
that I feel that I need to start going back and using my paper planner more effectively instead of the digital content. My Google Calendar, which is fine, it's got reminders. I can't tell you back in the day when I had my little black book of everybody that had their phone number, their mailing address, no email, and I had a lot of phone numbers memorized,
hmm.
different zip codes, different
That's so true.
prefixes, and the last four of the phone number.
Yep.
I mean, but it took repetition to do that, and I had to do it more than once.
Hmm.
Now everything is at my fingertips, and I've just gotten lazy.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to fast forward here in the book. Daniel Pink on page 162. I thought he said something really, really cool. He said Daniel Pink made the following statement. He said, three words are essential to connect with others: brevity, levity, and repetition. And then he said, let me say it again to end it. What do you think of that? Because I think that's so brilliant. Brevity, be brief.
Mhm.
Levity, have that humor, right? And then three, repetition.
It's exactly what we're talking about. Keep
Mm-hmm.
doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how well, you and I kind of had this conversation about like sales about a week ago.
Yeah.
How do you get better at sales? And it is, and we can use that same context, brevity, levity, and repetition, that we have to be prepared, that we have to be brief about this, throw the humor in, and just keep doing it.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people are not good in sales, and I'm using this example, and me being one of them. A lot of people are not good in sales because they don't do the third component. They don't practice that third component.
Yeah, for sure.
Repetition, repetition, buddy.
We fear things that we don't repeatedly do.
Oh man, yeah,
And
yeah.
so what I've built training on, I tell people
Mhm.
right off the bat, I've told all my public speaking students, the reason why you're terrified of public speaking is because you haven't done it a lot. By the end of this training, I
Yeah.
will give you more reps at public speaking, and your confidence will come from your reps. And so
Oh
it won't be
man.
this big, scary thing. The reason why people are terrified of interviews is because over the course of our life, we might do 10 of them.
Mhm.
Maybe. It's so seldom done, there's fear associated with it. So if whatever we fear, if we do it more, the fear goes way down.
Yeah. The public speaking example is a great example, and I love it. Okay. Um, and I've had my practice over this, especially with being in the Army when I was a drill sergeant.
Yes,
Then
sir.
I went from a drill sergeant to being an instructor and a small group leader. Over the course of years, not like one right after another, but I always had the opportunity to get in front of an audience, but I had to practice. But the
Mm-hmm.
repetition was there. But it was all classes, it was all scripted, for the most part. But when it came to like the public speaking dynamics, it was totally different. I was not, and I did this just out of habit and repetition. I didn't do the public speaking. I gave a class, I gave a briefing.
Mm.
That wasn't public speaking, right? So the more I practiced with it, the better I got at it. You know how many times I've had a chance to speak in front of an audience and I would practice. I've spent more hours practicing even for events that never came about. I will practice my public speaking in a room when I'm by myself, when I'm in the house by myself for about 10 minutes. I'll
Mm.
just pick a topic and I'll go with it. And it doesn't make sense. There's so many mistakes in it, but the repetition is there.
Yeah.
I've given more speeches to myself, to a make-believe audience, if you will, just for the practice,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
opposed to giving a speech in front of an audience.
That makes it, I mean, it makes it so much better when you actually get up there and it's the 50th time.
Yes.
So everyone is, they're hearing it for the first time, but you're hearing it for the 50th time.
Yeah.
Comfortable, it reduces anxiety. Mentally, you know exactly where you're going. Number four in these principles, say it clearly.
Oh my gosh.
Clearly. And there's a quote from Charles Blair on page 163: have an understanding so there won't be a misunderstanding. I hate
Hmm.
when people muddle things up. That's what I started this conversation off with. I believe I have great improvement to gain. Sometimes I use 20 words when I should use 3.
Yes.
Say it clearly, dude. And
Oh,
for me, that's my challenge. And I will get better at it.
that's interesting because I mean we need that. You know, we need that. I mean, how many times in Jack Welch, she uses Jack Welch as an example on here as well. And there's another quote in there. He says, "Insecure managers create complexity, frightened." Oh, okay. Nervous managers use thick, convoluted planning books and busy slides filled with everything they've known since childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, because they're it's almost like they're filling a time gap.
Right.
You know, how many times have we put people in leadership positions that they weren't ready for?
Mm-hmm.
And then we expect them to give a dynamic briefing or brief us on something that, they know nothing about, and we've set them up for failure,
Right.
you know.
Right. Later on in this area, if here's another quote: if you have more than a few main ideas, you have too many. I keep my talks to 3 main ideas max, and that can still be too much for an hour.
Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
What do you think? I totally believe that.
I do too. I mean, 3 main ideas, and it could be a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's like, when you've had to write those college papers, your first ones, you thought they were really good, and then what happens? You got all these ideas, you're sporadic, you're all over the map. When all you have to do is just funnel it down and keep the main idea,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's it, and then yes, there's some repetition in there that the audience may say, "Well, man, that," or the reader may say, "Okay, you've already said this more than once." Yes, but the repetition is there for clarity as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like this quote. In the end, people are persuaded not by what we say, but by what they understand.
Mm.
I love it.
That I mean, what more can you say to that?
Mm-hmm.
By what we say, all right, and rather than by what they understand. And as communicators, we have to get that point across. Because if not, how are we going to persuade anybody to do a better job, to rise to the next level? They have to be persuaded,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes to the 4 H's. That comes from the heart. That should come from the heart, and not just from a metrics standpoint. Not just from another tasker that's put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things just have to come from the heart to get people to rise to the next level, and persuade them to get to the next level.
I love it. I love it. And then later on, he stated, he's quoting Winston Churchill, I believe.
Mm.
He stated, all the great things are simple and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. And broadly speaking, the short words are the best and the old words best of all. I really like that quote. What do you think about
Yeah,
that? The,
I mean,
the,
that's
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, Churchill was a great communicator, especially during his time. He
Mm-hmm.
had to be. So the question, begs is how good of a communicator would he have been had he not been in the situation during World War II,
Mm-hmm.
with the occupation of Nazi Germany trying to hit England at that time, or hitting England at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and getting ready to invade. I mean, it goes to show that when a person is placed in a situation, we're really going to find out who they are, how well they communicate, how effective they communicate, or they may not be able to communicate anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't. Sometimes we just don't know. But when Churchill was that guy that England needed, that the world needed at that time as well, and his communication skills, spot on.
I have a challenge. I have a challenge. I think I agree with it, but this is a huge challenge. On 169, it says connecting with people at all levels. It says the key concept, the larger the group, the simpler the communication needs to be. That really did sit kind of sit in right in front of me for quite some time.
Yeah.
That kind of broke my that broke a mental barrier for me. What
Mhm.
about you?
I think so. I mean, it does. I mean, the larger the group, the simpler the communication needs to be. I mean, in the military, we had small group instruction. I mean, when I think of large groups instructing, I'm thinking maybe a platoon company size element, which could be anywhere from 40 people at the platoon level all the way up to maybe 200 plus people at the company level. But if you're communicating the same thing, it has to be, it has to be simplified because now we're targeting a larger audience, different backgrounds, different educational levels,
Mhm.
different cultural levels. Although we're all U.S. citizens at this point, but we come from various backgrounds. So therefore, the simplicity needs to be in the communication as well, as opposed to the smaller group. You kind of know what you're really, really going to say and how it's going to be received in a smaller group. Not taking it for granted by any means, but at the same time, yeah, it is. I agree with you that the challenge is there, and it does kind of hit home because you need to adjust fire, so to speak, as we say.
Yeah.
We need to make adjustments a lot of times and not take it for granted what we're communicating and to whom we're communicating.
Yeah. I just it I had some ideas. How do I say this? I probably had some ideas that align with this in the corners of my mind, but reading that, it found all of those ideas in the different corners of my mind and it put them together and it
Yeah.
crystallized for me. The great communicators, they are relaying something simple. They're making the complex, they're relaying it in a way that is simple. And I just like this. The larger the group, the simpler the communication needs to be. Let's finish off with the greatest small and large group communicator in the history of the world. So Jesus is communicating to the people of his vintage, the people that he's actually talking to. But his teaching is also communicating millennia later in the
Yeah.
same level of effectiveness. If you think about it, he's the greatest communicator in the history of the world.
You're right.
So he would take an audience and talk to them in terms that they could understand. He would talk about trees bearing fruit. He would
Yes.
talk about a gardener. He would talk about a good shepherd. He would talk about a camel going through the eye of the needle. He would talk about what he talked about was simple. It was, he took the complex and made it simple. So not only, get this, Joe, he's a communicator. You could say that, man, his speech was really effective 2,000 years ago, and
Yeah.
it's still as effective 2,000 years later. That's a testament to how simply effective the message is. So what do
Hmm.
you have to say on his simplicity?
I loved it because for a guy like me, I needed that.
Yeah.
I mean, I needed that. Don't and before I became a born again believer, man, the Bible was too complicated.
Mm.
I would hear pastors and priests talk, and I'm like, why is this so complicated to me? And then when I became a born again believer, I started to understand a little bit more to where some of the teaching became simplified. Not through a theological aspect, but somebody learned in seminary, but they broke it down for me even further. Going back to Jesus being the greatest communicator in the history of mankind, yeah, let's face it, he simplified it for a guy like me, and I need it. I'm not saying I'm a moron or anything, but what I am saying is I needed the simplicity. There's one parable that he talks about that as a farmer, When you put your hand to the plow, you don't look back, because if you do look back, you're going to miss the mark that's straight ahead.
Hmm.
He's saying, look straight ahead,
Hmm.
plow the line, look straight ahead, and keep it simple. Hit the mark. What he's telling you to do is hit the mark. Because if you look back, you're not fit for the kingdom of God, because you're looking back on what was back there. And maybe I had it a little bit better back there at the moment. But what's before me, what's ahead of me is a little bit simpler. All I got to do is follow the rules, and I'm okay. I'm just going to continue to go. I'm going to continue to look straight ahead, keep my hands to the plow, and I'm going to be fit for the kingdom of God. He simplified it for a guy like me.
Yeah, I love it. If you look across fields,
Mhm.
if you really do look across fields, if you look at technological innovations or communication innovations in different fields, it's
Mhm.
the person who simplified something that really drove it forward.
Yeah.
If it's the person who simplified it in medicine, if you can simplify a process or simplify to your patient what the
Mhm.
problem is and what they need to do, you're more apt to have them do it.
Yeah.
Simplify the process. In science, the scientists that have the greatest impact aren't necessarily the ones who are making the best discoveries, the ones who can communicate what's how effective it can be applied. Those are the ones who gain in writing, the ones who can make it
Yes.
simple. In advertising and marketing and whatever, people talk about Apple products. They say it's simple.
Mhm.
That they say it's simple. Google, the reason why they blew up, they made searching for something simple,
Right.
right? So anyway, I
Oh
think
man.
Jesus, in terms of being a teacher, a message relayer, going from point A to point B, successfully going from the source, the speaker, to the audience, he was better than everyone else, and he is the ultimate study. So we're using Everyone Communicates You Connect as a study book with all of these principles you can see actively used
Yeah.
by Jesus as he's teaching. So anyone who listens to this, even if you are not someone who believes in Jesus Christ's deity, check him out as a master communicator and you'll be
Oh,
blown away.
damn. Man, you just hit it.
Yeah.
You just hit it.
Yeah. I
Oh
think
my
that's,
God, you just hit it, man. See, that's what I love about you, brother, man. That the way you take those things and you communicate those things for all of us to understand and run with it. You just communicated the vision so clear that as I take the note, I'm writing it down and I'm running with it, man. That's what I love about you, man, the way you do those things.
well, you know who to thank for that. Praise God.
Amen.
And I'm glad that we've surrounded ourselves and put ourselves under the mentor, I guess, the mentorship of connectors through connectors in this book. Everyone Communicates You Connect. But
Mhm.
we do marvel at how masterful a communicator Jesus was. Joe,
Yeah.
this was another great episode. What is your takeaway in a minute or less?
In a minute or less. Yeah, great. Trying to keep it simple.
Yep. Same here.
Bottom line, the chapter says it all. Keeping this simple, communicating in the simplest forms, not really talking above anybody, but not talking beneath them in terms of like, we're going to communicate this clearly and effectively. So I'm speaking it clearly, you're understanding it, and if you don't, you can always come back to me and ask questions.
Yeah.
My heart is open.
Yeah. I love it. I'll just say this. Keep it simple. Say it slowly. Have a smile and say it again,
There
right?
you go.
Use the power of
Repetition.
repetition, do the work to keep things simple. Joe, this has been another great conversation in the connector circle. I appreciate you tag teaming this journey with me with this one and all of the other ones that we'll do in the future. Have anything else to say before we sign off?
Yeah, just basically real quick. I'm looking forward to the next one, chapter 8. Connectors create an experience everyone enjoys. Man, I'm going to be looking forward to that one. This is a tool that helps our audience and us as well personally as communicators to where we grow personally, we lead intentionally, and we're not missing the mark. We're
Mm-hmm.
looking straight ahead. We're plowing toward the mark. We're not looking back.
Yeah, I love it. So, brother, thank you so much. This has been great. I find you to be a partner, a co-chair, and a teacher as well. So I get all of this out of it. So I feel like I've done my brain work for the day. So this has been great. So for Jovi Hill, I'm Brian Rush. This is the Connector Circle, where we work on the skill and practice of connecting with others. That's all I have for this time. And until next time, my friends, connect, inspire, and win.